Monica Lewinsky affair broke, there was no more pressure on Israel. There are some conspiracy theorists who say that the Mossad sent Monica Lewinsky to deliver Israel. But seriously, and you have to understand something, I have been preaching in synagogues and churches and radio and TV since 1990. We're talking about 1998, 1999. I was very much into everything that was going on at the time. I go every year at least once or twice to Midland, Odessa, Texas, which is oil country. I know a whole bunch of Christian oil people out there, and they told me that a barrel of oil costs $18 to produce. For less than $18, you do not take the oil out from under the ground. Less than $18, you lose money. When the Monica Lewinsky affair broke, the barrel of oil was $18. Bill Clinton went to Saudi, and within 3 days, the price of oil dropped from $18 to $8 a barrel. Bill Clinton bankrupted the American wildcat oil drillers. I remember driving from New York to Florida on I-95 in January of 1999, and the barrel of oil was, the gallon of oil was 69 cents. How many, I don't know, in California you'd never see 69 cents, but how many people remember? In Atlanta, Georgia, in Savannah, 69 cents a gallon. I was a driving itinerant preacher. I went around the country like I'm driving now, so I know the prices of oil. The American people were so enamored of Bill Clinton because of this manipulation that the Senate overthrew the impeachment and Clinton did not go to jail. Clinton should have gone to jail. He should not have finished the second term for obstruction of justice and lying. Okay. As soon as the impeachment was overturned, the barrel of oil went from $8 to $32. I don't know how many, does anyone remember this? Because I follow the price of oil all the time. From 32 it went to 50, from 50 went to 70, went to 90, went to 100, went to 147. And then you had the economic crisis of 2008. You know, I want to tell you something. I love America. I love the American people. And it actually breaks my heart when I see Democrats attacking Republicans and Republicans attacking the Democrats. Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae collapsed because people who even in the best of times could not possibly pay their mortgages, so many mortgages failed because the price of gas was so high, people could not heat their homes, people could not pay the gasoline, and people couldn't pay the mortgage. The oil, the petroleum sucked, the price of the oil and petroleum sucked out the oxygen of the American economy, and the money went to China and went to the Arab countries. And the Democrats blame the Republicans, and the Republicans blame the Democrats, and nobody is looking at the real cause, which is the crazy, inordinate price of a barrel of oil. Now, if we are in bed, when I say we, I don't mean me, I'm saying if the One World Government Council on Foreign Relations is in bed with the Muslim oil, then George W. Bush, and I say this with a lot of respect, and a lot of respect to the American soldiers who gave their life and limb in the war in Iraq. Iraq sits upon a tremendous lake of oil, but America could not get to the oil because of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein, in addition to being behind the Oklahoma City bombing and TWA 800 bombing, by the way, in my red book and in my white book, I talk about Oklahoma. How many people know that Oklahoma City was Saddam Hussein? It's in my books. I can give you an hour lecture just on Saddam Hussein in Oklahoma City. George W. Bush was settling accounts with Saddam Hussein, but the point is Saddam Hussein sits on oil. And Rumsfeld was bitterly attacked by the Democrats when he said that the oil of Iraq would pay for the war. And the fact is it did take 5 years, but the oil is now coming out, and Iraq shows a surplus because of the oil. There's still a lot of theft. A lot of Iraqi leaders are stealing this oil and stealing the money, and American blood is flowing very freely in Iraq still. But the fact is that the world needed that oil. Canada was also a great friend and providing increasing amounts of oil. Okay, the reason I'm telling you this is because with Russia, Putin got rid of the foreign oil companies that Boris Yeltsin brought in, so the Russian oil production dropped. The Saudis and the Muslims got rid of the Christian companies, so-called Christian companies. Chavez got rid of the Brazilian and Spanish companies. And so oil production was dropping all over the world, and the price of oil was going up, up, up. And so the one world government had to get more oil. Now, George W. Bush wanted to overthrow the Iranian regime because Iran sits on top of a lake of oil, but you couldn't get to that oil without getting rid of the Ayatollah group. Okay, we're getting now to the Arab Spring. George W. Bush planned the overthrow of Mubarak because Mubarak would not go into the war against Iran. Without Egypt, you don't have an Arab alliance. Mubarak's reason for not going to war against Iran was because America had a president by the name of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter overthrew your best friend and ally, the Shah of Iran, and turned Iran into your enemy number one. So America created the first fanatic Shiite state, and that was Iran. George W. Bush, when he overthrew Saddam Hussein, and he said that Iraq should be a democratic country, 60% of Iraq is Shiite. Saddam Hussein was Sunni. So if you get rid of the 20% leadership, which is Sunni, and you give the majority vote, then it becomes a Shiite country. So America created Iran and Iraq as Shiite countries. And the Egyptians said every time we work with the Americans, something goes wrong, something goes crazy. And so Mubarak said no, and the plot to overthrow Mubarak started with George W. There is no doubt that Twitter, Facebook, Google, all these things work together to overthrow Mubarak. Now, the story of the Arab Spring, so-called, starts with a fruit vendor in Tunisia. The fruit vendor is pushing his cart, selling his fruit, and a policeman comes over to shake him down, get a bribe. And he says, "Where is your license?" And the Tunisian fruit vendor says, "You know I don't have a license, never have, and never will." So he arrests him, takes him to the police station. They confiscate his fruit cart, and a Muslim woman slaps him in the face, Muslim policewoman. This is the greatest offense, the greatest insult to a Muslim man. He goes out of the police station, he's lost his honor, he's lost his fruit cart, he pours gasoline all over himself, and he self-immolates. How many people know this story? Okay? This is how it started. That whole village, that whole town in Tunisia, the whole city knew about it within seconds, because everybody had computers, iPhones, Twitter, Facebook, Google. And then this spread very quickly to Egypt, Yemen, Libya, Syria. Okay. One of the reasons that the U.S. government has been backing the rebels in Libya is because the American government thought, and still thinks, that it is possible to get rid of Gaddafi. Now, I'm not defending Gaddafi. Gaddafi is a bad guy. By the way, Gaddafi said that Africa would be the first continent to be totally brought under Islam. So definitely, I speak in a lot of black churches. Gaddafi is no friend of the blacks. The slaughter of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of blacks in Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, these are wars between the Muslims of the north and the Christian blacks of the south. And Gaddafi armed and trained the leadership of the Muslims of the northern part of these countries to go in and wipe out the Christians in the south. And the world said nothing. Okay, I'm not even talking about Sudan. We have to get to Sudan also. Libya is a very key oil producer because it is close to Italy, and the oil of Libya reaches all of Europe through Libya. Libya, Italy. And so the one world government, which is in bed with the Islamic oil, has to ensure a united government under the rebels, and this has not yet happened. And I cannot tell you for sure who's going to win the war in Libya, because you have Libya is divided into two, and the two parts hate each other. It's tribal. So it's kind of like Iraq. Iraq is divided into three. You have Shiite, Sunni, and Kurds. They all hate each other. You have these tribal and religious animosities between the different groups. Okay. Now what I want to do now, because I know the time is running out, and I want to try to narrow down to how it affects America.
Take your time.
Thank you. Flattery will get you everywhere. Now, Remember my wife, Rachel?